The Mysterious Case of the Missing Milk and the Misunderstood Monster, Maurice. Maurice the monster wasn't your average creepy crawly. Sure, he enjoyed lurking in the shadows and letting out the occasional blood-curdling roar, mostly to practice his enunciation. But Maurice harbored a secret passion: baking. He dreamt of creating the fluffiest cakes, the gooeyest brownies, the most delectable pastries the world had ever seen. One particularly stormy night, as Maurice practiced his signature haunting moan, it needed a touch more vibrato, a frantic moo echoed through the forest. It was Betsy the cow, her normally calm eyes wide with panic. "Maurice," she mooed, her voice trembling. "Disaster! Someone has stolen all the milk from the farm. Without it, Mrs. Henderson can't bake her famous blueberry muffins for the bake sale tomorrow." The annual bake sale was a big deal in the little town bordering the forest. It brought together humans and creatures of the forest in a delicious display of culinary camaraderie. Maurice, despite his monstrous appearance and the fact that most humans fainted at the sight of him, couldn't bear the thought of a bake sale without Mrs. Henderson's muffins. "Don't worry, Betsy," he rumbled, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I'll get to the bottom of this, or should I say the utter side of this?" Maurice was working on his jokes, too. He followed Betsy back to the farm where a trail of hoofprints led to a dark, abandoned shed. With a deep breath and a slight tremor in his knees, Maurice peeked inside. There, huddled in a corner, was a small, furry creature with oversized ears and a tearful expression. It was Bartholomew the bunny, notorious for his insatiable sweet tooth. Bartholomew, overcome with guilt, confessed to stealing the milk. He'd dreamt of making Mrs. Henderson's muffins himself, but his baking skills were limited to burning carrots. Maurice, touched by Bartholomew's honesty and terrible baking skills, he empathized, decided to help. Together, they gathered the remaining ingredients, and with Maurice's surprisingly steady claws and Bartholomew's knowledge of the recipe, stolen glances at Mrs. Henderson's recipe box had paid off. They began to bake. The kitchen was a whirlwind of flour, sugar, and the occasional accidental fire, courtesy of Maurice's overenthusiastic oven lighting. But in the end, they emerged with a tray of slightly lopsided but undeniably delicious blueberry muffins. The muffins were a hit at the bake sale, praised for their unique rustic charm, a kind way of saying a little lopsided. Maurice, despite the initial scare from the townspeople, who slowly warmed up to the idea of a muffin-baking monster, became a local legend. Bartholomew, his sweet tooth sated and his baking skills a work in progress, learned the value of honesty and the importance of asking for help, especially from giant, misunderstood monsters with a passion for baking.